definitely if you're, getting into a new area, thinking about short-term rental, especially nowadays when there's a lot of regulations, do your research because it's definitely area by area, like city by city, area by area. Cities can, impose like multiple like locations, it could be block by block.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another interview here on Real Estate Deals. Today, I've got my friend Mark Ample, and I'm sure he's gonna stutter less than me. So let's get right to it. He's my friend from the Sub 2 community, who is run by Pace Morby, and we became friends right away because he was one of the first people who commented on my welcome post when I was just introducing myself. And then I called him, and he was just so kind to answer a bunch of questions and have a really great conversation. He's here in Southern California like me, except he's way out in the desert in Palm Springs. Definitely got more real estate experience than me. So, hey, Mark, welcome. And I love your last name. Ample just literally means abundance. So, welcome.
Thank you, Sunny. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and really excited about this conversation.
I'm excited as well. So it's great that we're both both getting into it. And I'm
Yeah.
sure I love having these conversations because other people they comment later or they message one of us and they tell us what they learned from it. And it's just such a great way to learn from real estate deals. That's why I call it that. How did you first get into real estate, or how did you first get interested in real estate way back in the day, whenever that was?
Yeah. First got interested in real estate, that was in 2018. So not too long ago. That was like when I bought my first house, which was like my primary residence. As well as, like during, shortly after like that time, a friend of mine, was also a sub two student, Rafael Roman, brought to my attention like bigger pockets. That, he was, looking into it. He was like reading up on it and learning about real estate. Took his advice. I looked into bigger pockets. I looked at the websites. I went into like the wormhole of bigger pockets, and listening to like literally all the podcasts. And really got excited with what they had to say, and a lot of like the things that they were talking about just made sense to me, and made real estate a lot less scary, if you will, than when I first imagined real estate to be. So yeah, so like really appreciate my friend like Raphael for like getting me interested in real estate, and helping me get this journey started.
Shout out to Raphael. That's amazing. When did you do your first deal?
Yeah, my first deal was not too long after that. So that was around like third quarter of 2018, late 2018, like, if you will. I just wanted to like roll up my sleeves and just like dive into like what I learned from the podcasts, if you will. And for my like W2, I travel for work. So I pretty much like go like wherever my W2 um needs me, like where my client work is for my W2 needs me. And at that time, I've been traveling to Houston, Texas, to Kansas City, to like Sacramento, to North Carolina, to Charlotte, North Carolina, like trying to like look for properties that would cash flow, would follow like the 1% rule. That was kind of like my barometer, at the time. It had to follow the 1% rule because that's what Bigger Pockets told me. Um, and like nothing would work like back in 2018.
What is
Uh,
that rule, by the way?
the 1% rule is the annual rents for the property should be at least 1% of the purchase price. So that the intent of that is so that it would cash flow. It would be a net positive investment after you take out your mortgage expenses, taxes, insurance, property management fees, and whatnot. So it's the 1% is a quick barometer, a quick like rule of thumb to really screen out properties that would cash flow or not.
Is it the annual rent or is it the monthly rent that should be 1% of the purchase price?
I believe it is monthly rent. Yeah, I think that you're right. Yeah, it is monthly rent.
Okay. Good to know. And that's a rule that's been around for, I don't know who came up with that. So I don't know who to give credit to, but Bigger
Yeah,
Pockets, I've heard it from them and I've heard it from a number of others. And it seems like a good rule of thumb. Although, like any rule of thumb, there are lots of nuances to it. There are lots of exceptions that where it might work to not follow that, etc. But especially when you're starting out, it makes sense to follow those like age old axioms, right? Rules of thumb.
correct. Yeah,
Um,
correct. And to add, like, when I was like looking around, traveling the country, looking at different houses, nothing worked. Nothing followed the 1% rule. Back at that time, like during 2018. Um, it could be a lot of things. Could be like me being, like brand new to real estate. Could, not knowing the markets. Could be a lot of things. But yeah, nothing really worked. Like following the 1% rule. Then I kind of like took a step back. Looked at the map. Seeing where else can I look. Then Memphis like popped up. I remembered like I had a family out there. I have cousins that are out there, so I decided to book a flight to Memphis. um you know Prior to like me coming out there, I got a little bit smarter, and I tried to set up like meetings with different like real estate agents, property managers. When I was there, like I drove around. I didn't know at the time was driving for dollars, but yeah, I drove around Memphis, trying to look at different neighborhoods, get a little bit better feel about it. And yeah, like maybe a couple of weeks later, after like my meetings like with different real estate agents, one of the agents had given me a call, and he let me know about a listing like from a friend of his, that was looking to sell, like one of like his real estate investments. I was traveling for work at the time. I was in Boston. I was at the airport waiting for my flight back to San Francisco when I learned about the deal. So like while waiting for my flight, I quickly like did some research. I did some looked at estimated rents, looked at what the estimated mortgage cost would be, insurance and whatnot. And it worked out. On paper it followed the 1% rule. And yeah, before I boarded my flight, I sent a text message to my agent to go ahead and write up the offer. And yeah, that worked out. Offer was accepted, and the rest is history.
was that your first deal or
That
is
was
it?
yeah, that was my very first deal. It's
Wow.
it's a single family house, 3 bedroom, 1 bath, which was actually a lot bigger than like my current primary residence. And extremely cheaper. At the time it was like $70,000, for coming from California. That price was very cheap and very affordable. In fact, like
10
some,
times, 10 times less than
yeah.
California.
Exactly. Exactly, yeah. And definitely get much more out there compared to California standards. So yeah, so I dove in, made an offer, not knowing anything at all. I haven't seen the property at the time. In fact, like the first time I saw a property was like a few months later. But yeah, just not knowing anything at all, just everything just made sense on paper. And thanks to Google Maps and doing some research, I was able to quickly make that decision to purchase that property, which it's actually one of the like my strongest performers as of now. Got lucky with finding the renters, like residents who really take care of the place. They pay on time, pay earlier in some instances. They're very,
Wonderful.
yeah, they're very diligent about keeping the place like very clean and tidy. And if there's any issues such as like a leak or something, they're great to really appreciate that they bring it up right away, so that we could fix it up, patch up like whatever need to be patched up, replace whatever need to be replaced, so it prevents um bigger problems like down the road. So yeah, so really, 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 really like that. That was a lot.
Sounds like you had a good experience with your first
Yeah,
deal.
yeah,
And so if we fast forward to the deal that you came to share about today, which you turned into an Airbnb. When was that
correct.
deal? When did you do that deal? Where is
That
that deal?
that's in Palm Desert, California. I partnered up with a couple buddies, in that Airbnb. Yeah, and that was, new market, new business model. Airbnb, pretty much like none of us, myself included, like didn't have any background in Airbnb, and kind of like was bitten by the Airbnb craze, if you will.
When did you buy that deal?
That was 21. Yeah, early 21. Oh, sorry, late 21.
So that's
Like
interesting. That was
December
during the
2021.
pandemic when a lot of
But
people
yep.
weren't traveling. So what made that a good deal, or what made that desirable to you?
Um, what made desirable for me, it was like my first time visiting, the Palm Springs area. A friend of mine, has Airbnbs as well in the area. So I went to visit for the first time ever in 2021, and just really loved the place, just loved it, saw the potential. And it's nice that, it's comfortably still in California. um and there was just a lot to like, and it was away from like the hustle and bustle, that I'm used to from the Bay Area as well as in LA. It was very different, very calm, very beautiful area. So yeah, so just fell in love with it. And yeah, and at the time the Airbnb was like all the craze. So yes, I got bitten by the Airbnb bug and got on a mission to find an Airbnb.
So even during the pandemic, 21, this is 2021, that was still a popular thing that you were hearing
Also,
about.
yeah, that was still a thing.
And there was still good tourist traffic to Palm Springs, Palm Desert area.
Right, yep, correct. Yeah, yeah. There was, so yeah, so it just, yeah, I did like the usual thing, come in, drive around, look around, meet a bunch of folks, get to know the area as much as possible. Settled in on Palm Springs, Palm Desert area, and yeah, was lucky to find something here.
How did you find that deal?
Um, through, I guess, combination of like text messaging, marketing, and word of mouth. So yeah, so what, at least I didn't know it was called at the time, but I was doing direct to agent, like marketing to real estate agents. At the time, introducing myself, setting up meetings, letting them know what I'm looking for. Then like there was an agent that I met, like she had a listing. Actually, it was a listing that was about to like go out, about to be like opened. She let me know about it. Did some quick math, if you will, like looking at Air DNA, like talking to folks about what the potential income is, and it seemed to have worked out. So like myself and like my partners, we were getting ready to put an offer out, but like the huge snag that broke the deal is, um I thought I had understand the short-term rental laws around here, but turns out like I didn't. So I was chatting with a property manager at the time about it, but like he confirmed and let me know that like that property wouldn't work as a short-term rental, because it was one of the areas that there were restrictions, so that quickly fell apart, if you will. So yeah, so definitely, if you're getting into a new area, thinking about short-term rental, especially nowadays when there's a lot of regulations, do your research, because it's definitely area by area, like city by city, area by area. Cities can impose like multiple like locations, it could be block by block, if you will, HOA. So like understand like what the STR laws are like in the area that you're looking for, and know it like very, very, very well. Because there's like pretty much like no escaping it, especially nowadays.
And SDR stands for?
Short term rental.
Yes.
Yeah,
You might hear STR, you might hear MTR, which stands for midterm rental, and LTR, which stands for long-term rental. Long-term rental being 12 months or more. Short-term rental oftentimes could be as short as a day, right? And then
correct.
midterm rental is pretty much anything in between there. Could be a couple of, could be it kind of overlaps with short-term rental. It could be days, could be weeks, could be months, but oftentimes it's going to be like weeks or months. And
Correct.
many times midterm rentals are for professionals who are traveling, or like it could be airline pilots, or
Traveling
other people,
nurses.
other people that work on an airline staff, or like you said, traveling nurses. Could be people, could even be families who were displaced by fires or floods, et cetera, who need to go and stay in a different place for a while. And there's real estate investors who just rent to insurance companies, believe it or not. It's kind of amazing. So there's a whole number of categories of midterm rentals. And short-term rentals, even with all the regulation that you mentioned, which is really good. You mentioned that, and that regulation is ever evolving, especially with cities cracking down and wanting to not lose what they call hotel revenue for the city. There's still lots of opportunities out there. So very interesting. What are the hardships that you went through? You mentioned you had never done this before.
Yeah.
How did you build that house out into into an Airbnb? Like
Yeah.
who takes care of that every day? Like how does it work?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess to add to my story, with that original like property that didn't work out. So I was kind of thinking like, okay, what's the plan B? I just casually asked like the person who would eventually become, a property manager. I was like, hey, do you know anybody who is like thinking of selling? And he said, yeah, in fact, I might have somebody. Let me talk to her. I'll get her number, and if she's okay with it, then I'll pass it along. So but within hours, actually, I had like the name and the number of like the person who was like selling. It's an existing Airbnb. It was like her property. She was looking to simplify her portfolio, so I gave her the call the next day. This was a Thursday. So I called her Thursday evening, or like Thursday late afternoon. She confirmed that she is interested in selling. And kind of like at the end of our phone conversation, she asked like if I wanted to see it. So I lived in the Bay Area at the time. I said yes. So the next day, myself and like my buddies, like we drove down to see it. Took a look at the property the next day, like quick turnaround like over the weekend. And like and negotiate a deal in the parking lot, pretty much. So yeah, that's how that deal came about.
That sounds like one of those synchronicities in life that there's something just really came together and worked
Yeah,
out. Um,
exactly. Yeah, which
after, go
I was
ahead.
I was gonna say that, which is kind of like my ethos, like what I believe in. If it's for you, it's for you. It'll be super easy. You know, you can do nothing wrong if it's meant to be. But if it's not meant to be, then everything will go against you. And like at this point, if I kind of feel like I've exhausted like all my efforts, like that first deal that I mentioned earlier, the first like SCR deal, like I exhausted like every effort, just to like make the deal work, but it just wasn't happening. I was encountering roadblock after roadblock. And you just eventually just dropped it when it just wouldn't work. So yeah, but this deal was quite the opposite. It was like super easy, almost like everything fell into place. Everything happened like super quickly. So yeah, it was very turnkey property, which was something that made at least like my life a lot easier, because it was a turnkey experience, relatively turnkey experience.
Given that, were there any hardships in getting this ready to be a short-term rental Airbnb, or maintaining that, or
Yeah,
financing it or
yeah,
anything?
yeah. Financing was easy because still at the time, rates were still like in the 3%. So that was kind of like a no-brainer. It was like super, super simple. I mean, unlike now, like rates are double, if not triple.
You don't want to pay 7.5, Mark.
Not right now. Not right
You could
now.
refinance that three for a 7.5. I'm joking.
Let me think about it. I'm kidding. So yeah, so that was the easy part, of course, like not knowing anything about like the Airbnb business. That was kind of like a challenge. I'm thankful that, like at least like the big for it was actually set up already as an Airbnb. But big because it's been an existing business for quite a number of years, a lot of not a lot of like a handful of like the furniture of the decor was pretty dated. So like that was like something on day one that like that we wanted to do. We wanted to like make it a little bit more attractive online, as people are scrolling through like Airbnb or VRBO or whatnot, want to make it pop as much as possible. So that was like the challenge that like we faced like immediately upon like starting this journey of short-term rentals. Like my mistake was I kind of did it because of not knowing the business, not knowing the market, the area so well. Like I did it during the peak season. So I blocked some time out so that we could go in and do the decors, change furnitures, whatnot, during the peak season. So that was like a lesson learned, like for me, is if you're doing something like pretty big, which is kind of like capital intensive, like furnitures and whatnot, do it during like the slow season so that you don't lose out in revenue. Yeah, I learned, as a lesson learned, I didn't need to do it right away. Like during the busy season, I just should have like waited when times got like a little bit slower.
That's a good lesson learned. What else would you have done differently if you can go back and do it all over again?
What else I would have done differently? I probably wouldn't, would have um I probably would have kind of like done like the improvements like in little bits and pieces. Like my thought was, do a big bang, get everything done like right away so that I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I mean that does take up like some capital as well. It's funny how you think that a rug here, a throw blanket there, a pillow here, forks and spoons there, would be cheap, but yeah, they add up like really, really, really quickly. So yeah, so I probably would have tapered like those improvements over time rather than spend like a big chunk of money at the beginning to do all those things because when we bought this property, it was turnkey, had everything. um Everything was functional. It was more of like I just wanted to look pretty like in pictures and look great like for the Instagram. But yeah, like looking back, I probably should like tapered it a little bit slowly.
Seems like one of the benefits of short-term rentals that you have those lots of periods where you can do things just because there's nobody there, or you can block off the dates. Whereas with a long-term rental, someone's got a 12-month lease and then they have to leave for you to make any improvements or any major improvements.
Yep, correct. Yeah, but yeah, what one thing I learned because like a huge difference between like my short-term rental and my long-term rental properties is I'm finding that even if I do have like property manager for the short-term rental, it's still very hands-on. Like there's always something. There's a chopping board that needs to be replaced. There's a blender that needs to be replaced. There's always something. Unlike long-term rentals, you kind of just forget about it. If everything is going well, you just forget about it. You have a check coming in the mail, if you will. Yeah, so it really depends on like what your investment style is, like whether you want to be, like really active and hands-on, if you want to be a little bit more passive in your investment.
It's a great insight because people talk about the extra revenue from short-term rental, but there's also some extra hassles. Is there anything else that you would do differently if you can go back and start over?
What I would do differently is I probably try to negotiate a lower price purchasing the property. I mean, it was, at the time it was definitely well below market value, that I was able to lock the deal in. But yeah, I would probably have like negotiated down like a little bit more, to account for like variability in, the income of a short-term rental. Especially like nowadays when short-term rentals are like, a lot slower now than they were the past couple of years. So definitely account for variability in income, because it's a wild ride. Like you just pretty much like don't know what you're getting until you're there.
Wow, yeah, those are very good to keep in mind. What kinds of deals are you looking for these days?
Yeah, these days, what I'm looking for, short-term rental is, kind of like low priority right now. Definitely want to, focus a little bit more on long-term rentals. I'm looking for like single families, small multi-families, 4 units and below specifically. I want to graduate, quote unquote, from residential, and I want to do commercial. So I'm actively looking for commercial properties, smaller commercial properties, such as like light industrial properties, warehouses, and whatnot, and even businesses. I'm actively like looking to learn more about, and try to like purchase a business, like a small business, such as something like a laundromat, for example, which is a business, like my partners here in the STR, like we found a potential opportunity in Fresno, to purchase a laundromat, but the numbers just didn't work out. So, with that experience, I'm a little bit more confident in pursuing businesses like laundromats, car washes, like whatnot.
You are an adventurous guy. I know this from chatting with you for a while. And
Thank you.
I think it's a wonderful thing because many of us are more cautious before going into things. And it takes a balance of personality types. You actually have a really nice balance because you have a whole analytical side. And then you also have the side where it's like, hey, let me really go out in the world and try something new and see how it goes. And we've talked about deals that haven't worked out that you've worked on, and some of these deals that have worked out wonderfully, like this Airbnb deal, things really just came together. I loved hearing those stories of things just coming together. And even then, there's challenges, like you said. If you can go back in time, you would do it differently in some aspects, at least. Um, so,
Correct.
Mark, how can people get in touch with you if they want to share a deal with you, or if they like your energy, they like your style, they want to do a deal with you? How can people get in touch with you?
Yeah. I'm, but if my number shows up, definitely reach
It's
out.
on the screen. Yeah,
Oh,
you're good about
yeah.
putting it on your Zoom.
Feel free to reach out. I'm on the socials, the usual socials: Facebook, Instagram.
Okay.
Marco. My Instagram is Marco Amps. I'm also on YouTube. With my my name. So yeah. Feel free to reach out, and would love to help. Would love to like chat.
Sounds good. And I will put your info down below the video when I post it on YouTube, especially, so people can easily find that and get in touch with you if they want to. Mark, thanks so much for being here. I definitely appreciate you sharing this, and I know other people will. Do you have any final words of wisdom for people who are looking to let's say they're looking to do their first deal, or they're looking to do a deal like the one you just mentioned?
Yeah. I would say like whatever your interest or passion is, whether it's your real estate, stocks, crypto, NFTs, baseball cards, whatever, if this is something that you're interested about, and you're new to it, just learn as much as you can. And it's doesn't have to be perfect. It's never going to be perfect. Take some action, like as soon as like you have something in mind, just go do it. And just go from there. There's definitely going to be like some mistakes made along the way, but be open to course correcting in real time until like you figure out what the right formula is.
Amen to that. And that's my ethos as well. So let's go out and do some real estate deals so we can all keep learning and
Love it.
sharing with each other. All right. Thanks so much for being here, Mark.
Thanks,
Bye.
Eddie.
Bye for now.
Bye bye. Thank you.